So Taurus.
Always. Okay, so Taurus. Taurus is fixed Earth, Venus ruled.
Mm-hmm.
Kick us off and tell us a little bit about Taurus, Corin.
Taurus is ruled by Venus, so there can be artistry to Taurus energy and a grace to Taurus that is gentle. I think of Taurians as gentle. I think of them as just very steady in their affections and in their ambitions. They're not racing and ramming out of the gate like an Aries sometimes. They're moving much more deliberately, much steadier towards a fixed goal often, and they stay the course. They are excellent at staying the course in whatever they're trying to pursue. That Venus rule gives them a sensuality that can be quite beautiful, the sensuality of the body in relationships, in their relationship to the world and to flavors and food. Taurians are connoisseurs to have a really refined palette, a refined sense of color and harmony and flavor and texture. So certainly one of the connoisseurs of the zodiac. That Venus rule gives them a way with people as well, certain earthy charm to Taurus. And Taurians are often associated with money and being earning and building a nest egg, building a home, or just building their portfolio, building a family. They're builders. They are steady and they build over time. And they're also quite pragmatic and I'd say dependable. You're not getting too many surprises with the Taurus.
Yes. I feel like that's something about all of the earth signs that I didn't appreciate before I became an astrologer, and maybe it also just had something to do with my age. The reliableness and calming presence, kind of, the trustworthiness, the steadfastness of those earth signs. Yes. And Taurus is great that way. They really do have a calming presence, very reliable, very responsible. They really keep at it. They keep at whatever they're doing, and very hardworking, loyal. That's sort of the word too, in terms of relating to them from other people's point of view. In terms of the financially stable, they are sort of the most likely of the energies to make money themselves in their lifetime, like come up in financial gains during their lifetime. And also there's something about them that like really appreciates the value of things. Taurus is known to pick out the most expensive thing in the store. They appreciate the value of them. They appreciate what is valuable. And I think that is part of what makes them good cooks and good gardeners, but also just their earthiness and their love of being in a body. Taurus likes to have a body, so they do tend to be quite sexual people and enjoy that side of life and enjoy eating and cooking and wearing clothes that feel good, wearing nice fabrics and things like that. Very slow and steady and stable and harmonious. It really is a nice sign.
Yeah, Venus is at home in Taurus, and they're also very patient. I've found with Taurians I've known, they tend to be patient. There's another side to that when it comes to anger, but also they not as much as perhaps Capricorn, but certainly preserve traditions. They, whether it's land or objects or things that are tangible, steady over time. There are dependable friends, right? Patient, dependable friends who tend to be pretty responsible. Strong set of shoulders.
Absolutely, yeah. They have dependable is a great word. They have integrity. That they're honest. They do what's right. They believe in that. I feel like Taurian energy is comforted by knowing that they're doing the right thing and that they're slowly and steadily working towards their goals. And that's very grounded, that consistency. And it's grounding for them and it's grounding for people around them. I'm also thinking about how Taurus loves nature. That's a part of where the gardening and the cooking comes from. And it's good for them to take walks in nature, and just anything with nature is good for Taurus. and how that also sort of contributes to them often enjoying eating healthy and exercising and being a bit health-minded. Should we move on to shadow for Taurus?
Absolutely. That patience that Taurus has its shadow side in certain stubbornness. Those two things are related, but Taurians can be known to be stubborn. When they fix on something, it's hard to change their opinion, almost impossible in some cases. They're hard to anger, but once they are angry, that Taurians can have quite a temper. It's really slow to get there, but once it's almost like starting, you're trying to start this fire, you've got your kindling. It's not lighting, but once it does, it's just going, and it's hard to stamp out a temper of a Taurus. You don't want to mess with their anger. That love of beautiful things and that appreciation for all the finer things can be is an acquisitiveness. It can be a spendy quality that might not work in Taurus's favor, loving to spend money on expensive things. They probably usually have the money to do it as they go through life and they accumulate more, but materialism, I guess is what I'm trying to say, is there can be a materialistic side to Taurus.
Yeah. I think a lot of that really resonates. Yeah, Taurus can be, it's interesting to think about how you were saying once they do get angry, it can be difficult because, I think that there's maybe two things that contribute to that. First, they're quite conflict averse. So then that would cause a Taurus to go a long time without saying anything. And so you have those repressed feelings. And it would be better for a Taurus to sort of learn to speak up over lesser reasons along the way rather than letting it build up. They value harmony so much that it makes them sort of conflict averse. And then the other thing is just how sensitive they are to discomfort. They do enjoy being in a body. And so they're sensitive to all the feelings. And if they're having a negative one, that can really rub a Taurian the wrong way. And there are just sort of a lot of things about them that enjoys doing things the way they like to do things. So it could be easy to throw a Taurus off because they can't really be rushed. They like to take their time. They can't really take a break. They don't want to take a break. They want to do a little every day. It can be hard for a Taurus to change gears. I think, certainly as opposed to a Gemini, the adjacent sign, they sort of fear change. They don't really love change. They like things to be the same. I have noticed when reading a chart that wherever we have the Taurus sector, change can be difficult, even if it's good change. People can be thrown off even by positive change. And I feel like we've sort of seen that lately with Uranus moving through Taurus. Even if when it brings good things, people are just like, I don't know, my job situation is totally different. And it's like, but you're making more money and working from home now. That seems like a good thing. I also think that sometimes Taurus can be thought of as, I don't want to use the word boring, but in a way boring. They're sort of quiet, they have simple interests and they don't really like change. They don't need a lot of verbal excitement like a Gemini, or a lot of craziness in their life like an Aries. So the shadow side could almost be a boringness, but not to me. I think that's a light.
I agree. I think it's a light too. Because we need all the different kinds of people, and that Taurus energy is beautiful for being steady.
It was harder for me to think of the shadow side for Taurus because their shadow side is sort of mild. It's like you can't rush them. That's really not that bad. Like a Gemini will lie to you. A Scorpio will keep a secret. Taurus, you just can't rush them out the door too quickly. It's pretty mild shadow stuff.
What I hear most often is that there can be a certain lethargy to the Taurus energy that is hard to motivate them to action if a Taurus doesn't think that they necessarily, say their partner thinks something needs to be fixed or changed. If the Taurus doesn't agree, it can be, they really dig their heels in, or just they have a hard time getting going with certain projects, or being brought to the table for things that might for change and for things that need to be changed, as you mentioned. And that sometimes there can also be a certain possessiveness about Taurus that is beautiful in a way, in that their love is so steady, strong over time, but it does have an edge of possessiveness to it at times. So,
yeah, I think that's right. That's right. I think that's great. They can be sort of inflexible, and I was also thinking that I think sometimes a Taurus doesn't do great when they live in a city. I have a weird belief that Taurians are meant to live in the country, or if they live in the city, they have some sort of like crazy rural practice where they're like, we go apple picking in the country in the fall, we walk in the greenway every single day. Like, they're very, very connected to nature. They have a camp that they go to every summer, you know, that's on a lake or something, because of that love of nature. So I almost would think of that as the shadow side. Like, you can't really leave a Taurian in the city for too long. Okay, so for Taurus, highlight and low light. I think that the calm serenity of a Taurian is the highlight. And that comes from a lot of other wonderful qualities about them, their loyalty, their dependability. But how it manifests for them and those around them is a calmness and a serenity that is really, really lovely. Definitely connected to that Venus rulership. And then my low light is actually something that we didn't mention during shadow. And I think that there's a reason for that, which is that Taurians don't talk about this very much. But I think that they struggle with self-esteem and self-doubt more than any other sign. They just don't talk about it. And it's because of their constant assessment of the value of things and what things are worth, and trying to decide what's nice and what works and what doesn't, that sometimes they can overassess themselves and worry about whether or not they're doing a good enough job, and struggle with self-esteem and self-doubt. And they really don't talk about it. But in a reading, when I work with a Taurus, if I bring this up, they generally say, that's the truest thing you've said.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is incredibly astute. That's not an insight that I'd had about Taurus. Really astute, Gina. I think my highlight for a Taurus is their natural aptitude for growing and nurturing things over time, whether that's growing a family, growing a garden, that those actions need steadiness. They need just a slow and steady approach that Taurians do better than anyone else. They're sustainers. They're growers and sustainers. So I have that as my highlight. And my low light was the classic criticism of Taurus, is that their stubbornness is. There's a time and a place for stubbornness, but sometimes that stubbornness can work at cross purposes with their goals. Because of their aversion to change and to conflict, or to different modes of being around them, they might be overly attached to their ways and stubborn to change. And it might be cathartic for Taurians to embrace change in certain situations where they're very uncomfortable doing so, just to experiment somewhat around that. So.
Yeah, almost with like flexibility. Like, start with experimenting with flexibility, and then you'll get to change, because they can be sort of married to their approach sometimes to their own detriment.
Yes.